Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the view from the opposition. It's going to come to you a day earlier this week. Don't worry, the match preview will land on Friday as usual with John Gibson. Today I'm joined by familiar face of the podcast, Matt Davies from Forest Focus. Matt, welcome back. How are you keeping? You well?
I'm all right. I mean, I look like hell. I'm looking at this. I need to get down the barbers and shave my beard. But you've had a rough morning as well, by the sound. Good to be with you.
Yeah, ladies and gents, you do not understand the chaos that we've had to jump through to get this episode to you. I've got an ill toddler who is creating all kinds of chaos. Bless her. She's not very well at all, but she's finally gone to me mother. So we've got about 15 minutes, I reckon, before this calm period passes. So why not get into it by talking about Nottingham Forest, the surprise package, Matt, of the season so far? I think many would say it's going all right, isn't it?
It's going, it's going all right. Yeah, us and I guess Bournemouth, who are like the horse in the final 2 furlongs of the race. They're the one that are charging up at the moment. So yeah, it's going great. Definitely Champions League contenders, along with you guys and probably 4 or 5 others for 3, 4 places. However, it's going to pan out. With I guess Liverpool are going to win the league, but yeah, exciting times. Looking forward to this game definitely.
Does it ever get boring when you say that to people that Nottingham Forest are Champions League contenders?
No, no. I mean, I thought we are for a while. Once, you could see we had a formula and a way of winning games that I don't think too many teams are going to score tons of goals against us. I know Bournemouth did, but you had your own experience of that the week before, so they're clearly a good side. We could have conceded quite a few against Fulham, but generally we've been really good, and because of that solid base and good counter attack, and Chris Wood, who I'm sure we'll mention, I felt like we're contenders for a while. Whether it happens or not, I don't know, but just trying to kind of enjoy the ride and not panic about how it might end up, I think is the approach at the moment.
Oh, I'd love you to get Champions League football, not at the expense of Newcastle. And I do hope you guys slip up on Sunday, but I just think it's a tremendous campaign for you so far, and to upset that established order like we did a couple of years ago, like Forest did the year after. I'm all for it. And I'm just trying to work out in my head, Matt, who this is a bigger game for. Obviously, at the moment, Forest are in 3rd on 47 points, Newcastle in 7th on 41. So looking at that, you would probably say this really has to be a must win or a must not lose for Newcastle, because there's no way that I can see them making up what would be 9 points if you guys beat one Sunday.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because after this, we've got Arsenal and City at home in back-to-back games. So we've got these 3 really tough games before fixtures ease. So if we get a win, it kind of takes the pressure off that. And obviously, we're both coming off bad results. You're off 2 bad home results in a row. We're off 2 bad away results in a row. So it feels like pretty important for both teams. So I guess you could argue it's bigger for both of them in a way. Obviously, it can't be, but a result is massive, especially being away from home. We're in a bit of a rough trot, but then, like I say, so are you guys at home. So yeah, it feels like 2 teams in not slightly vulnerable positions, even though we are at the top of the league, top end of the league. So it's an interesting game, definitely.
It could be really fascinating one for the neutral, because from both sides, I think we're expecting a reaction from both teams. Obviously, you guys lost to Fulham last weekend, and Newcastle got thumped at Manchester City, and that was a really disappointing performance by Newcastle United. You can lose games, of course, to Manchester City, still arguably the best side in the world, but it's the manner in which you go about it, and they were absolutely shocking from the first whistle. And then you look at their home form of late, the Arsenal result aside in the Premier League, they've been pretty poor at home, losing to, as you say, Bournemouth. They lost to Fulham, who hadn't won at St James's Park in many a year. So I don't know if there's going to be too much optimism coming into this one, even though you guys did lose to Fulham. How much are you expecting from Forest on Sunday in terms of the reaction?
Well, when we lost to Bournemouth, we beat Brighton 7-0. So I'm not expecting that. That was a freak game. I don't know if Newcastle fans saw it. Like Hertzler played this mad formation with 1 in midfield, and it was literally the worst game plan I've seen in years. So it was a bit of a sort of a red herring game in a way. Yeah, I think there'll be a reaction because we didn't play very well at all against Fulham. We could have conceded 3 or 4 or 5, but for Matt Sells. So I think we'll change formation. A lot depends on if Callum Hudson-Odoi fit. He's missed a couple of games. I know we won one of them handsomely, but for reasons explained. So if he's back, then I think that really helps us, and we can change shape and go back to the 4-2-3-1 formation and try and get an extra man in midfield, because I think that's such a crucial area. Whenever you play Newcastle, it feels like a big area of the game, and I know like you guys are missing Joel Linton, which feels pretty massive for us, but you beat us at our place by winning the midfield so well, and if we can find that response with a couple of welcome returns, then I think that gives us a real chance of going there and getting something.
Well, I think that'll be where Eddie Howe's biggest decision will be who takes that third spot in the midfield alongside Bruno Antonelli. As you mentioned there, Joelinton out, probably unlikely to even be about for the final in a few weeks, which will be a huge blow. Joe Willock got the nod against Manchester City, and just bless him, after a great performance against Birmingham in the FA Cup, he just reverted back to type of how he's been this season, looking like he's running through treacle, unfortunately. He's such a good player, but it's just not working for him. Sean Longstaff has fallen well down the pecking order. So everyone is keeping their fingers crossed that Eddie Howe is finally going to start Lewis Miley. He's come off the bench in recent games and looked good. He was the only player against Manchester City that did anything of note in the second half. So I think he will be the man to drop into the middle alongside Tonali and Bruno. But we're talking about reactions, Matt, and Bruno and Tonali were particularly off pace against Manchester City. And I think both of them will be hungry to make up for what was a bad performance. And do you think Newcastle United will give that reaction? Are you fearful of Newcastle United potentially being a wounded animal?
Yeah, I am, because you've got good players, and good players don't play that badly consistently for too long. So maybe there's one more game in it, and we'll cash in there. But when you look at players like Isak and Anthony Gordon, who were probably on fire like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I don't know if their performances have dropped, but the goals output seems to, and obviously that's going to come back. I kind of would rather see Willock play than Longstaff. I haven't seen much of Newcastle, obviously, when you talk about his form, but that physical Newcastle midfield worries me more, because we've tended to play. Well, in the last game we had Danilo in there and with Elliot Anderson and Gibbs White just as a 2, and that feels like an area of weakness. So I guess we would probably bring back Ryan Yates or Nicholas Dominguez for Danilo, and then maybe Gibbs White plays a bit deeper. And Elliot Anderson's been like an absolute superstar. I know I shouldn't come on here and say this all the time, but we recorded our podcast earlier this morning and did a whole section on why Elliot Anderson is a proper England contender, and for me, he should have been in the last squad and this one. So he's such a crucial player for us. He makes our whole midfield tick. So there's a lot of a spotlight on him, because he missed the game at the City Ground where he wasn't fit enough to start, I think, and now he's fit and he's one of the players that's consistently firing. So it feels like there's a lot on Elliot Anderson versus Tonali or Guimaraes, whoever plays the deeper role out of those two.
Yeah, it'll be Tonali who will play the deeper role. I'm just hoping that Elliot Anderson has a massive off day and can't see where he's passing the ball because of the tears in his eyes, because he'll get a lovely reception, and hopefully it does overwhelm him, because, oh man, that is when you talk about sliding door moments, and every so often we'll do a podcast where we talk about those moments that you look back on and think, what if? And it's like, oh, what if they just kept Elliot Anderson? Because such a tremendous player. I think we spoke when he signed, and I said, I think you've got yourself a bargain. I really, really do. I think he'll turn out to be worth at least double that, if not more. And it looks like I've been proven right, but hopefully he has a stinker on Sunday when he does indeed return to Tyneside. Come on, then, let's talk about the other man that we may have regret selling, Mr. Chris Wood. He's just been brilliant, hasn't he, this season?
Oh, yeah, he has. I mean, I don't know if you regret selling him in the sense that where he was at his career versus where he is now are totally different. But like Chris Wood right now is the second best striker in the league, second best number 9. I put Isak at the top. I guess Haaland's second, isn't he, really? So Chris Wood's the third best striker in the league, I think. Is like Salah's a winger, really. But yeah, 18 goals, 25 games, 2 assists as well. He is on fire, and he's scoring ridiculous goals. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Fulham one. He had one shot in the game. He barely had a touch, and he took it down and calmly put it in the back of the net. And that wasn't the Chris Wood that we signed, and I guess it wasn't the Chris Wood that you saw. But through combination of a good manager, good tactics, good luck, and then momentum, it's all kind of worked out well. And I would go into any game backing Chris Wood to score now, no matter who the opponents are, including this one. Doesn't mean we'll win, but yeah, he will give any centre half a tough challenge. Obviously, it seems like you've got some flux in that area as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Chris Wood can do again at St James's Park.
Yeah, well, I talk about reactions from players. We need a reaction from the likes of Fabian Schär, Dan Burn, maybe some bottom might come back into the side. But, the centre backs against City were particularly showing up. But again, the whole team were. And I look at how they're performing against City. The midfield totally overran. The fullbacks having one of the worst days of this season. Lewis Hall's been absolutely brilliant, but he was torn apart by Savino and Trippier. For me, I didn't want him to start against City in a back four. If it was a back five like they did against Arsenal, fair enough, throw him in. But against the tricky winger at a four at the back, he was always going to find it difficult. Will he start again this Sunday? Probably a flip of the coin. You can say the fact that he was withdrawn at half time probably suggests that maybe Tino might get back into the starting 11. But did you watch any of Newcastle versus City and think, you know what, I can see Nottingham Forest picking off Newcastle just as City did?
Yeah, but I don't know if Newcastle will play that way consistently. They're such a funny team. And you probably talked about this loads. Like, they play against Arsenal in the Cup and they look amazing. They have a run of games where they look brilliant, and then they lose 2 home games in a row. I think they're a bit like us, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, especially, of teams at the top of the league that have flaws. And it's like, how many of your flaws can you mask in enough games to get enough points to get in the Champions League? And obviously Newcastle's were massively exposed in that game. I don't think that necessarily means that we'll do it again, because I think you'll play better. So it's not irrelevant, but it's interesting that it shows there's areas that can be exploited in your team, just like there are in our team, I would say.
And is the wings another really important place to watch for the battle? I'm assuming Elanga will be on one side, and you mentioned Hudson-Odoi might be out injured. So what would happen there if indeed he does miss out?
Yeah, it's interesting. If he doesn't play, it feels like we'll play a totally different way. So Nuno's kind of masked not having Hudson-Odoi by going to a back three, and then Elanga sort of plays almost as a second striker who drifts to the right, and Gibbs White plays as a number 10 who slightly drifts in and around Chris Wood in a slightly different role. And it worked really well against Brighton. It didn't work against Fulham, but he doesn't seem, the manager, to trust Ramon Sosa or Jota Silva to start games as the backup wingers. Like, obviously, we were saying at the start, we weren't expecting to be where we are. So they were kind of £5-10 million signings who were meant to be kind of development projects, not guys who get you in the Champions League. So if Hudson-Odoi doesn't start and we play a back four, I think what we'd probably do is play Nicholas Dominguez as a sort of a narrow winger to do a job on Anthony Gordon, or play on the other side and try and restrict Lewis Hall getting forwards, or something like that, with Elanga just as the one threat in attack. And it really hurts us as an attacking force, because so many of our goals come from Gibbs White, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Wood in a combination. But it would make us stronger defensively, and we'd kind of be trying to go there and nick a 1-0 or a 2-1, because obviously Elanga still poses a big threat, and as Dan Burn knows, and he can combine with Chris Wood. Their assist, score and assist combination, I think, is the second highest in the Premier League behind Palmer and Jackson. So we would carry a threat, but no, Callum Hudson-Odoi really changes, I think, how we go about the game.
And in terms of on the pitch, what's the approach? Is it very much Forest just try and absorb and then hit on the counter?
Yeah, it has been, definitely. We don't like having the ball. We like sitting in, and that's worked really well. I think a few teams, I wouldn't say they found us out at all, but it's not been quite as effective in some games. Fulham covered it really well, and Marco Silva's a top manager, and Iraola as well. And obviously Eddie Howe's a top manager, so it'll be interesting to see what plan they have. But the plan is always, we've scored the same goal so many times, like win the ball. Elliot Anderson will often find Gibbs White or Elanga in space with a really good ball, and then they'll find Chris Wood and we'll score. And teams haven't stopped that enough. So the transition on the counter-attack is always the thing with us, and how brave Newcastle are and how high their line is and how much they look to impose themselves on the game is a big factor, I think. But yeah, we're massively a counter-attacking team with 40% possession and try and hit teams on the break. And I don't think that changes here.
It's the pace that really frightens me, because Fabian Schär's lost a few yards. Dan Burn probably never have it, with all due respect. I mean, he's been Newcastle's best defender arguably this season at centre back. Lewis Hall was awful against City, as we've said, and then there's a reason Tino came out of the team for Kieran Trippier, and there's a reason he'll be probably back in the team. Although I'm sure Eddie Howe would have rather him had a few weeks out, just to maybe take him out of the firing line slightly. So I'm a little bit worried about the pace that you guys have got. The midfield, for the large part, has been brilliant, but they are, as we said, missing Joe Linton, and Lewis Milner is a totally different player, and that's going to be a key area. In terms of a player that you're fearing, I suppose you've probably already mentioned him, but is there one that stands out for you?
Excuse me. Oh yeah, well, obviously Isak is like the easy answer because he scored against us. Always like the other one is always like Bruno Guimaraes, because he's a clever player, takes up really good positions, can score and create. So the obvious ones are Isak and Gordon, but Guimaraes as well is one. Lewis Hall, I've had him in FPL for ages, and when you have a player in FPL, you watch them a bit more, and he gets forward a lot down the left and has quality. He looks like a more polished performer than Livramento to me, I would say, from what I've seen. So if him and Gordon do well down that flank, because Olorena had a really bad game against Fulham. His form's been really good all season, but maybe the last 3 games he hasn't been quite as good. So that feels like a key area. So Newcastle have got good quality all over the pitch, but if Newcastle win the midfield and Guimaraes is on song, then it feels like a much tougher day for us.
And it's going so well for Forest. Champions League contenders, a joy to watch when everything is flowing. Some fantastic players that I wouldn't mind in the black and white of Newcastle United. But there must be a weakness. Come on, share the secret.
Well, against Man City and Fulham, what the managers did was, and Brighton tried to do it as well, have a winger who drifts in and plays as a second number 10. And Iwobi did it really well, and Jack Grealish did it really well. And we lost both those games comfortably, picking up that space behind our midfield, which doesn't have a proper number 6 holding player. And that's caused us problems. Another thing, weirdly, that's caused us problems, which has been a real strength, but in the last probably month to 6 weeks, has been defending set pieces and defending crosses. We've conceded a lot of goals from crosses and set pieces of late. 2 against Fulham, obviously. We've lost a little bit of the authority that we had there. Number 6 has been kind of something that we've masked all season with Ryan Yates and Dominguez, who aren't natural defensive midfielders. Ibrahim Sangare is meant to be that player, but he's been injured. He's just come back, but he looks like he needs minutes. So, we've obviously got weaknesses. Like I say, there's all those teams below Liverpool feel like they've got weaknesses to some degree, and those would probably be ours. But we won't make it easy for you. We've been so strong defensively that I wouldn't think we'll concede 3 or 4, but I think we'll definitely concede in this one. It depends how many we can score. Obviously, that's an obvious thing to say, but that's where our flaws probably are, I'd say.
Well, I'll get your score prediction in a moment, but just a reminder, ladies and gents, that this episode is brought to you by NordVPN, and we've just been talking about flaws and weaknesses there. Well, this is definitely the product for you that is full of strength and will protect you when you're using public Wi-Fi. All your details nice and safe, and there's a host as well of other benefits. The plans start from just £2. I think it's 33 pence. It's an absolute bargain, and the premium product isn't any more than £5. So that's just value for money. Hit the link in the podcast description box. Help protect yourselves. Help support the podcast. Thank you, as always, for signing up if you have, and if you do. Matt, come on then. How's it going to go on Sunday?
Well done on that NordVPN read. I've just recorded one of those myself yesterday, and yours was slicker than mine, as ever. So well done for that. How's it going to go on Sunday? I have absolutely no idea, because we haven't played very well in the last 2 away games. You haven't played very well in the last 2 home games. I think I've come on here and been pretty confident of, we're going to lose the game or we're going to get something in my previous appearances. I really don't know. It could be one where you beat us 3-0. It could be one where we win comfortably, which kind of makes me feel like it might be a draw, where we're probably happier with that than you because of the table. So I'll say a 1-1 draw, but it's one of those that could be anything, I think.
If I'm not mistaken, you came on for the Boxing Day fixture and said pretty much Newcastle are going to win that game, and we lost. Then the fixture down at the City Ground, I'm pretty sure you were very confident that Forest were going to win and Newcastle
and you won
3-1.
easily.
So, goodness knows what it's going to be this time around. They always seem to be really quite like attacking games and good to watch. Obviously, better for one side than the other. I'd take a point. I am very nervous about this game, and I'm also nervous about it in the context of the next month, because City was the chance to set the tone. They didn't do it at all. Are they distracted by the League Cup final? They can't afford to be, but it appears they might be. This is going to be the real test, because if they don't turn up today, then I think there will be even more questions about their discipline in terms of thinking about that final. So Eddie Howe's got to have drilled that message into them this week, and that it's all about the game ahead of you, not about the final to come. I'll take a point. That's me at my most positive this week. I hope that I take all 3 points, but I just not feeling it this week, unfortunately. But Matt, thank you very much for popping on, providing the view from the opposition. You can find Matt over at Forest Focus. As he said, he's done his own little match preview as well ahead of this game. So if you want more content building up to the fixture, do head over there. We'll be back with the match preview on Friday with John Gibson. Hit like, hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, get your NordVPN discount as well. And for myself, I will see you guys tomorrow.